Today's prospect spotlight is Oliver Moore of the NTDP. I'm getting good at that.
I know. Did you see Kenny? Kenny's frustrated with us.
Yeah, you know.
Sorry, Kenny.
5 days a week, Kenny.
Fast forward, Kenny.
We can only do so much. Oliver Moore, he's 5'11", 188. He's a center. And I think the biggest overarching comment about Oliver Moore, whether you talk to NTDP coach Dan Muse, who we had on our show, whether you look at draft experts or in scouts, it's his speed. This is a fast kid.
Yeah, he's the fastest player in the draft. And you go watch highlights of this kid, he scoots. Like in his first couple of strides are incredibly powerful. He can beat defensemen wide sheerly with his speed. He's coming in, what is he saying? He's listed at 5'11", just about 180. He's going to be big enough. The issue, will he be center? Right now he's centering the second line at the NDP. He's a second line center, and he's looking to be projected anywhere from 7 to 12. So he's in that range for the Coyotes at the second pick. I don't think he's the guy you're going to see at 6. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that definitely could be there at 12. Yeah. Skill is good. He's a good skilled player. His points aren't going to reflect that in NDP because he didn't play with the top 3 players, which were on that top line with Perreault, and we talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
And Jordan,
Perreault, Leonard, and Will Smith.
Leonard, yeah. So with Will Smith above him, he was second line center, and he didn't have the wings that Will Smith had. So to see his points I don't think that's a big issue. His speed is absolutely elite, and for a team like the Coyotes that want to play fast. Most teams want to play fast. Coyotes want to play fast. This is a guy that they could add to the lineup to help push their speed along. He's a dynamic player, plays quick. You know that if you're at the NDP program, you know how to train, you know how to take care of your body, you know how to practice, you know how to do the things right to succeed. So his development has a leg up already because he's at the NDP. I think he'll be there at 12. And it might be somebody the Coyotes look at. And you look at a speedy centerman. We've already got Logan Cooley, who's an incredibly high-skilled center. You got Jack McBain up the middle of the ice. This team can add to their center depth with a player like Oliver Moore.
Yeah, and something that Dan Muse said when he was on our show last month, he said he played center for us the majority of the year, but over his 2 years, he showed he can play center, he can play wing, he can play power play, penalty kill, in all situations, and his speed is just really hard to handle. Again, it all comes back to the speed, but it is good to know that he can play in a bunch of situations. So, you know, if the Coyotes, maybe with the 6th, they draft a center and they draft Oliver Moore at 12, then maybe they push him to the wing, and that's, you know, that could work out too.
Yeah, when you drafted Clayton Keller was a center, and now he's a wing.
I literally don't even remember that.
Yep.
That's funny.
So he was a centerman. So there are... Everybody can't play center, but it is nice to have 2 guys in on a line that can take draws. If you get a right-hander and a left-hander, you can take draws in either corner. That is beneficial. So we'll have to see on his development, will he project out as a wing or a centerman? I think that will be TBD. But I think the one thing when you watch Oliver Moore is you need to watch how fast he's able to get up and down the ice. And he is explosive and exciting to watch. And I tell you what, if you want to put butts in seats, get a guy that can scoot up and down the ice. You look at a guy like Michael Grabner.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you look at with an Oliver Moore speed. He's another guy like Grabner that he also kills penalties. And so I don't know if he has... Grabner had good skill, but hands, but sometimes his feet were faster than his hands. And I think that caused people to think Grab wasn't as skilled. But I think he's more of a Michael Grabner player where you look at speed with smarts and can do literally everything.
The Watt said, Minnesota, heard of them?
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Supposedly
How
targeting.
did I forget he's hit from Minnesota? It was on my first thing. The first note I had about the kid was he's from Minnesota.
And Roaring Fork said, there's no way he's there at 12. You very well could be right. And I guess at this point, you really can't be shocked if he even goes at 6 to the Coyotes. Like right now, NHL Central Scouting has him ranked 8th among North American skaters. One of my biggest gripes with the NHL is that they do separate North America and Europe. See, so like he could be 8th on North America, but how does he rank if you smush it all together? Yeah. That we'll never know, and that's why we don't rely on the draft experts and the scouts. But and Ogie said Cooley, Hayton, Moore, and McBain is a hell of a center depth. So
we'll see. True. And Roaring Fork said it. He's going, like, he's a Minnesota kid. He's going to play at the University of Minnesota next year with Logan Cooley. And you talk about Minnesota interested in targeting him. Yeah, if we don't think he's going to be there at 12, he sure as hell ain't going to be there at 21. Like that's where the Wild are picking. I don't think he's going to be there
unless they trade up.
But maybe they trade up. And here's what's interesting about this year's draft. And we said over and over and over again, it's Connor Bedard, Fantilli, Carlson, Michkov, and then Will Smith. But there are some people that have, Pellikka over that. They have Leonard over that. You've got Moore. You've got Danielson. You've got there are so many people depending on what your need is or what your scouts think on that next tier.
Yep.
Like there it is. Throw them in a bag and pull it out. You don't know who somebody's going to take, even at 5.
Yeah.
I mean, we said all along it's Will Smith, but there are teams that they have teams that have Reinbacher there.
Yeah. And maybe a team needs a defenseman. And as Dan just said, it only takes 1 or 2 teams grabbing a D and Moore could be there at 12.
And Reinbacher is a guy that we did hear Craig Button say that it could be sending Pellikka, but the majority of the people I've talked to have sending Pellikka at 3 and Wielander and Reinbacher are ahead of him. But it depends on what you need. Like we saw it in last year's draft. Simon Nemec.
Yeah.
Nobody thought he'd go number 2. He went second in the draft. Yeah. So it screws up everything else. So as much as we sit and speculate on what could happen in the chat or on our show, you don't know what these scouts are looking for or what they heard. Maybe they heard something at the combine or something in the meeting that their interviews like, oh gosh, we need this kid. We need this kid. I don't know who's going to be there for the Coyotes at 6. If Will Smith is there for the Coyotes at 6 and they get Will Smith out of this and any of the other players we talked about at 12, because if Will Smith's there at 6, that means everybody else is pushed back. Maybe they do get a Wielander at 12. Maybe they get a Sandy Pellikka at 12. Maybe they get an Oliver Moore at 12.
It's crazy.
I don't know.
We don't know either. And we're just doing this you know the name.
We're not draft experts.
So you know the name when it's called. Hell no.